In our headlines on this Wednesday, December 10th, here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung chairs a meeting with his ministers and industry insiders to explore ways to strengthen South Korea's global semiconductor leadership. And South Korea inks a preliminary agreement with Peru for battle tanks and armored vehicles in its largest defense deal with a Latin American country. Also, South Korea is selected to host the United Nations Ocean Conference in the year 2028, while its co-host Chile hosts the preliminary high-level meeting in 2027. President Lee Jae-myung presided over a semiconductor strategy meeting earlier on this Wednesday afternoon with his ministers and industry insiders amid plans to strengthen South Korea's global presence. Our correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
With what's seen as high-tech changing at breakneck speed, President Lee Jae-myung says the semiconductor industry is the way forward for South Korea.
어쨌든 대한민국도 잠깐의 혼란을 벗어나서 이제 새롭게 도약해야 되는데 산업 경제 발전이 그 핵심이라고 생각이 되고 그중에서도 반도체 분야가 아무래도 우리가 매우 경쟁력을 가지는 전망 있는 영역으로 생각됩니다.
At a time when the fight for semiconductor supremacy is being described as a war between countries, President Lee chaired a meeting with ministers and industry insiders on Wednesday to discuss ways to boost South Korea's competitiveness. Lee stressed the need to build a robust semiconductor ecosystem.
전 무방 산업들도 그렇고 지금 주로 논의되는 소위 소부장, 소재 부품 장비 분야는 해외 의존도가 매우 높다는 얘기들도 있고.
Although South Korea is a global leader in chip manufacturing, it trails competitors such as Japan and the US when it comes to materials, components, and equipment technology and production. To address this, the government plans to provide expanded fiscal and financial support for semiconductor materials and component suppliers. It will also launch the Trinity Fab, an evaluation to mass production chip fabrication plant in Yongin City, Gyeonggi-do Province by 2027. Another major initiative is expanding semiconductor infrastructure beyond the capital region.
For stable growth and a strong supply chain, we can no longer concentrate the semiconductor industry only in the capital region.
The Industry Ministry plans to establish what it calls the Southern Semiconductor Belt, connecting the cities of Gwangju, Busan, and Gumi. Gwangju will serve as a hub for advanced packaging, Busan for power semiconductor production, and Gumi for materials and components. The question now is whether what was discussed this time will be enough to propel South Korea into the Lee administration's goal of the world's top two semiconductor powers. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
On the labor front, employment expanded in November on year but remains visibly divided depending on age and industry. Our economic correspondent Park Jun-han has the latest numbers.
South Korea added 225,000 jobs in November compared to the same month last year. This marks the second consecutive month of job growth hovering around the 200,000 mark. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Wednesday, the total number of employed people stood at 29,046,000 last month. The increase was driven by health and social welfare services, which added 281,000 jobs. However, key industries continued to show weakness, with employment in the manufacturing sector falling by 41,000 and construction down by 131,000, marking 17 and 19 consecutive months of job losses, respectively. While the overall employment rate has risen by 0.2 percentage points year-on-year, which is the highest rate for any November, the employment rate for those aged 15 to 29 dipped by 1.2 percentage points in the same period, losing 177,000 jobs.
It appears that the recent shift toward experienced hires and occasional recruitment is making it harder for young people to find jobs. Many workplaces where young people work are concentrated in industries like accommodation, food services, and manufacturing, and the difficulties facing these sectors also seem to be affecting the amount of young people's employment.
Economically inactive individuals taking time off to rest reached just over 2.54 million in November, up 124,000 from a year earlier and marking the largest level ever recorded for that month. Especially the economically inactive population in their 30s also rose to 314,000, the highest November figure on record. A government official explained that the number of people who were previously classified under childcare or household duties has decreased, and more are now being counted as those taking time off to rest. This shift is contributing to the rise in this category among the economically inactive individuals. 박준환, 아리랑 뉴스.
Meanwhile, on the defense front, South Korea has inked a preliminary deal for the sale of military land vehicles to Peru, signaling a significant inroad into the Latin American market. Our Pyongyang has details.
South Korea is poised to make a significant breakthrough in the Latin American defense market after Peru agreed to procure nearly 200 units of Korean-made ground vehicles. According to the presidential office, the Peruvian army will receive 54 K2 main battle tanks and 141 wheeled armored vehicles under a comprehensive agreement signed with Korean defense firms and Peru's state-run enterprise. While final contract negotiations are still underway, officials say the deal is expected to become the largest Korean defense export to Latin America and the first entry of the K2 tank into the region. The K2 has already strengthened its international standing through multi-billion-dollar supply contracts with Poland and performance demonstrations across Europe. National security officials say the Peru deal represents a pivotal step towards expanding Seoul's global defense footprint.
K-Defense is laying the foundation to become one of the world's top 4 global defense powers. We are launching a presidential-level control tower to drive these efforts forward.
President Lee Jae-myung welcomed the development, expressing hope that the agreement will elevate bilateral defense cooperation and lead to a sustainable, mutually beneficial partnership. If the export proceeds smoothly, Seoul expects the deal to serve as a foothold for expanding Korean defense exports across the wider Latin American market. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
On the international front, U.S. President Donald Trump says his report card on the American economy stands at well above A+. Our Isingjae covers his remarks.
U.S. President Donald Trump has given the U.S. economy under his second administration what he calls an A+++++ grade as he prepares for a trip to Pennsylvania to highlight his efforts to bring down inflation. The comments came during an interview with Politico on Monday, where Trump defended his record on prices and pushed back against concerns from some supporters who believe the cost of goods remains too high. Trump argued that he inherited what he described as a total mess, claiming prices were already at historic highs when he took office. He insisted that costs are now easing, pointing specifically to energy prices. Trump won the election on promises to bring relief to households struggling with rising expenses, yet his administration has faced ongoing frustration from Americans who say that many prices remain elevated. Trump has blamed the Biden administration for the high costs and has dismissed Democratic arguments on affordability as a hoax and a con job. Trump has attempted to curb prices in part by removing tariffs on a range of products in recent months, a move officials say is aimed at lowering costs for consumers. The comments also come as the U.S. Fed is set to make its last rate decision of 2025. As Trump travels to Pennsylvania, the White House is expected to continue framing inflation and affordability as top priorities, even as public opinion shows divided views on the pace of improvement. 이승재, 아리랑 뉴스.
South Korea is scheduled to host the main event of the United Nations Ocean Conference in the year 2028. The multilateral meeting seeks to advance the sustainable use of oceans, seas and marine resources. Our Ian Jin reports.
The UN General Assembly on Tuesday overwhelmingly approved a resolution officially designating South Korea and Chile as co-hosts of the 4th UN Ocean Conference. With no abstentions, there were 169 votes supporting the resolution and 2 against, the United States and Argentina. The triennial meeting is hosted by 1 developed country and 1 developing country, which means Korea will host the main event in June 2028 and Chile a high-level preparatory meeting in 2027. This conference concentrates on advancing Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is the UN's Life Below Water goal, focused on conserving and sustainably using oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. The South Korean Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries plans to select the host city through a public bid open to local governments in the first half of next year. But even before Korea was confirmed as the host of the event, Busan had already expressed strong interest and been actively pursuing a bid to be the host city. During a plenary session on Monday, Oceans Minister Chun Jae-soo said that the 2028 conference will be a defining moment for all stakeholders to come together for a more effective collaboration and concrete action plan, making it a crucial milestone just 2 years before the 2030 target year for SDG 14. The third UNOC was held in Nice, France, from June 9th to 13th this year, co-hosted by France and Costa Rica, drawing some 15,000 participants, including 55 top-level officials from around the world. 이은진, 아리랑 뉴스.
And President Lee Jae-myung hosted a group of foreign ministers from the Pacific Islands at his office earlier today as part of efforts to promote partnership on minerals and energy. Some 15 officials from the region, including the Marshall Islands, Papua New Guinea and Tonga, are in Seoul for a Korea-Pacific Islands foreign ministers meeting. During his interaction with the top diplomats, the president highlighted South Korea's continued contribution to the region through ODA projects, and added that South Korea will proactively respond to the shared threat of climate crisis. Also, South Korea has lodged a protest with China and Russia against the unannounced entry of their warplanes into Korea's air defense identification zone. The Defense Ministry summoned military attachés from both nations earlier on this Wednesday morning to object the incident. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 7 Russian and 2 Chinese military aircraft entered the zone over the East and South Seas on Tuesday. While territorial airspace was not violated, the jets failed to share prior notice before entering the area, as is the custom. Seoul's military says it will continue to respond firmly to such incidents in accordance with international law. The Pyongyang International Marathon takes place on April 5th next year, and all 500 spots reportedly sold out in fewer than 5 hours after sales began. Now, this is according to Beijing-based Korea Tours, the marathon's official travel partner in charge of foreign participants. The agency is seeking to secure more slots and has asked potential participants to join a waiting list. The marathon begins and ends inside the Kim Il-sung Stadium in Pyongyang. In fact, the event began back in 1981 to mark the birthday of the regime's founder, Kim Il-sung. The travel agency adds holders of South Korean, US, Malaysian and Japanese passports are not permitted to partake in the event. From speech contests to roundtable discussions on shared concerns, the youth of South Korea and neighboring Japan are working to maintain the momentum of bilateral ties as the two countries mark 60 years of diplomatic relations this year. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young takes a look.
25-year-old Hiyori Morisawa initially came to Seoul for a short exchange program, but ended up enrolling in a Korean university, withdrawing from her undergraduate studies in Japan.
While learning the language, I gained a deeper understanding of Korean culture. The concept of jong, an enduring sense of emotional connection. That experience made me feel closer to Korea and love it more.
She was one of the participants at the 21st Korea-Japan Speech Contest organized by the Japanese Embassy in Seoul. For 2 decades, people of all age groups have delivered talks on subjects close to their hearts in each other's language, showing how interpersonal connections have withstood political swings in bilateral relations. 16-year-old Bae Jin-woo says his relationship with Japan grew due to his love of ice hockey.
I used to play ice hockey, and seeing Korean and Japanese teams compete together showed me differences in culture and style, and how sport can serve as a bridge between the two countries.
A separate youth roundtable inspires cooperation and unity among young Koreans and Japanese against major challenges facing their generation. Part of Japan's Genesis program that promotes understanding among young people in the Asia-Pacific.
The most recent virtual session focused on disaster preparedness.
This discussion aims to explore how both countries can respond to natural hazards such as earthquakes and flooding, risks that can occur not only in Japan and Korea, but anywhere in the world. The topic was also deemed a shared priority when then Prime Minister Ishiba and President Lee Jae-myung met in September. Both sides agreed to strengthen cooperation and pursue joint preparedness efforts.
Participants shared how both countries respond during major emergencies.
I experienced the 2016 Gyeongju earthquake while I was studying in the library one evening, and I had to rush home. Earthquakes are far more frequent in Japan, which is why preparedness is essential. I wanted to compare how disaster readiness is approached in Korea and how response systems are structured in Japan.
Confronting shared challenges through dialogue beyond leader and government level, civilian exchanges are creating common ground over traditional sticking points and perceptions. This coming significantly in the 60th year of normalizing relations between Korea and Japan.
Communications in the private sector have rapidly increased within the few years, and these days Japanese cinema is a blast in Korea, and also I believe that a Korean-Japanese director has made this amazing movie in Japan, which has also been a hit. And also this could be a very fun story, but I heard that these days dating apps are even connecting Japanese people and Korean people within the private sector. Despite having political differences, despite having historical disputes, I believe that in the future, especially the younger generation, have a very optimistic future ahead of us.
While shuttle diplomacy strengthens top-level engagement, these people-to-people encounters are fortifying the foundation of future-oriented relations across all generations in Korea and Japan. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the artwork of Catholic priest Kim In-jung is on display here in Seoul this month, highlighting his distinct style of stained glass art. Our culture correspondent Park Eun-woo has a glimpse.
Vividly colored paint on glass that seems to tell a story or a poem. This is how Catholic priest and artist Kim In-jung has worked for decades, using oil pigments and brushes to create colors as radiant and transparent as light itself. His pieces look slightly different from traditional stained glass that's typically assembled by joining small pieces of colored glass together with lead. Two special exhibitions, Poetry of Light and Light for Life, now running through this Christmas in two separate museums in Seoul, offer rare opportunities to appreciate Kim's work close up, including several being shown for the first time. A notable fact is that all the artwork on display is deliberately left untitled for a good reason. Behind me are Kim's latest artworks, which are also left intentionally untitled, allowing each viewer to step in with no preconceptions, just a pure personal encounter with the light and color before them.
I've been going through a dark period, feeling trapped. So I was finding a way to release some of that pressure, and this exhibition helped me out. It reminded me of a crane taking flight, so if I could name the piece, I'd call it Rise.
Although Kim is well known for his works on glass, his artistic practice extends to a variety of media, including canvas. And one remarkable characteristic of his work is the fusion of East and West.
European audiences say his art feels completely different from typical abstract or figurative works. The empty spaces reflect what influenced him since childhood, and he often uses thick calligraphy brushes along with vivid Western-style colors. These elements give his art a truly unique texture.
Kim's works throughout the years have been installed in around 50 cathedrals across Europe, including Chartres Cathedral. Now at 85 years old and living with hearing loss, he continues to work passionately, currently in France and Korea, showing no signs of slowing down. Though his pieces remain untitled, the emotions and reflections they evoke continue to illuminate those who stand before them, and perhaps that in the end is the very title he intended. Park Eun-woo, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. In Europe, Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky has again ruled out giving up any territory to Russia, saying he has, quote, no legal or moral right to do so. His comments on Monday came as Ukraine prepares to send a revised peace plan to the White House after weekend talks between U.S. and Ukrainian negotiators produced no agreement. Zelensky met UK, French, and German leaders in London in what was widely viewed as a show of support amid concerns that Washington may back a deal requiring major concessions. He said Kiev's updated proposal could be submitted as early as Tuesday. Meanwhile, Russia claims new gains along the Eastern Front, which Ukraine disputes. In The Hague on Tuesday, the International Criminal Court sentenced a Sudanese militia leader to 20 years in prison for war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Sudan's Darfur region more than 20 years ago. Ali Muhammad Ali Abd al-Laman, also known as Ali Kushay, was convicted in October on 27 counts, including murder, torture, and orchestrating rape, with judges saying he personally beat detainees to death with an axe. Prosecutors had sought a life sentence, while the defense argued the 76-year-old was misidentified. The ruling concludes the ICC's first trial on the Darfur conflict, which began after militias known as the Janjaweed were mobilized to crush a 2003 rebellion. In Indonesia, a fire in an office building in Jakarta on Tuesday afternoon killed at least 22 people. Authorities say the blaze began on the first floor of the 7th-floor building after a battery exploded inside a drone company's workspace, sending flames and thick smoke upward. Most victims were women, including one pregnant woman, and police believe they died from smoke inhalation. Firefighters used aerial ladders to rescue trapped workers. In Australia, a social media ban for under-16s has come into effect. The ban blocks under-16s from accessing 10 major platforms, including Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. It took effect at midnight local time on Wednesday. Companies now face fines of $33 million if they fail to remove under-16 accounts. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the law is needed to protect children from predatory algorithms, but tech firms warn it may push teens to unregulated spaces. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
You'll want to be ready for unpredictable weather this week. This morning started off cold, but temperatures climbed to around 10 degrees Celsius this afternoon, making it milder than usual for this time of year. Tomorrow will also be milder than average with no major cold spell. Early tomorrow morning, rain will begin in the center areas and the Jeollado provinces, then spread across the country. Most areas will also see about 5 to 10 millimeters of rain. Mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province with low temperatures will see heavy snow of more than 10 centimeters. Tomorrow morning's Seoul will start off at 6 degrees, Daegu at 4 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 8 degrees in Seoul and Gyeongju, 10 degrees in Chuncheon. After the rain spread nationwide, temperatures will drop sharply on Friday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us and thank you for now.